It's time for a Yankee Rewind.
What will America's hyperinflation look like? And can it even happen? Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching Yankee Stacking. And in this video, I'm going to talk about hyperinflation. Something I believe is a real existential threat to the survival of our American way of life and even freedom in general. One of my subscribers, Stephen Knight, posted this question. Can you make a video on what hyperinflation would look like in America? I thought printing $2.2 trillion seemed like a huge number to me. Well, Stephen, it seems that way to me too. I believe Argentina is facing a high inflation rate now. I hope they, or us, don't end up like Venezuela or Zimbabwe as comparisons. That's a great question, Stephen, and I appreciate you asking it. Hyperinflation is actually my end game, folks. It's why I prep. It's why I stack. I've had some new subscribers, so I'm going to say a few things about our debt-fueled, fiat dollar-based, fake American economy that may sound a bit harsh, okay? It may sound like I want something bad to happen. I'm against my nation, my country, and that's not true at all. I'm a patriot, okay? I don't hope for the demise of our nation in any way, economically or otherwise. Nor do I think that hyperinflation is a certainty in the near future. But I do believe it's a possibility sooner rather than later. And even a certainty at some point. I believe we've passed the point of no return. I've done videos on that and discussed it in the past. I believe hyperinflation will occur in my lifetime. If I didn't believe that, folks, I wouldn't be doing this. I might do a little bit of this for fun, but I wouldn't be stacking this way. Okay. And if I'm wrong, if hyperinflation doesn't hit while I'm alive, you know what? I'll be very happy. And I'll simply pass on my wealth insurance to my children. So let me tell you what I'm covering in this two-part series. Number one, I'm going to define and describe hyperinflation. Number two, I'm going to give all of us a sense of just how dangerous hyperinflation is. Third, I'm going to discuss how likely I believe it is for America using this article that I found in the Atlantic quite a few years ago on the subject as reference. And finally, I'll tell you about a horrific economic change that I believe is about to hit that not only makes hyperinflation more likely, but almost welcomes it with open arms. Hint, it has 3 letters. And that's all I'm going to say for now. All right. So let's define hyperinflation. Hyperinflation isn't just like more inflation, okay? It's just not scaling up inflation. They're actually two different things, inflation and hyperinflation. In the first, inflation, you want more cash, okay? Things are costing more. Your pay better keep up. You want this, all right? In the second, hyperinflation, you want nothing to do with your nation's currency. Okay, nothing. In the first, inflation, cash is king. In the second, cash is trash. Now, we have many examples of when cash became trash with other countries and other currencies. For example, Zimbabwe. It was mentioned in Stephen Knight's comment. I have here a $1 Zimbabwe note from 2007. $1. All right, 2007. 1 year later, I have a $20 billion Zimbabwe note. Look at those zeros. 1 year. $1, $20 billion. That is hyperinflation. That's what it looks like, okay? It also happened in Germany, the Weimar Republic, between 1919 and 1923. Weimar Germany is where we usually see those iconic pictures of wheelbarrows full of cash, women heating their homes with currency, kids playing with homemade kites made out of cash. Amazing photos. Argentina. It seems like they go through hyperinflation every decade. It's just a constant problem. Venezuela. Whoa. 2019, we saw what socialism brings to a country. It's what socialism always brings to a country. Ruin, ultimately. They are struggling with incredible hyperinflation. One more example comes to you from Yugoslavia back in 1993. This is a $10 billion dinara. Wow. Now, there is no specific numerical definition for hyperinflation, like there is for recessions, 2 quarters of negative growth in an economy. Some economists suggest that an inflation rate of 50% per month would indicate hyperinflation. And to illustrate what that might look like in America, let's take a junior cheeseburger deluxe at Wendy's. Yankee doesn't eat fast food all that often, but when I do indulge, I actually love Wendy's. And they cost about $1.89 today. That little hamburger with 50% per month hyperinflation would cost $245 this month in May 2021, and almost $32,000 in 2022. That is what hyperinflation would look like in America. Now, that hasn't happened in America, not to that extent. It's happened as many as 55 times over the past century. But it did happen to a small extent during the Civil War with currency known as greenbacks, as they were sometimes called. But that was not in the order of billions or trillions. Okay, I think it's also important to point out right now that hyperinflation is usually precipitated or instigated by an excess of currency, which is not backed by gold or silver or any other substance of value. Okay, that's what we mean by fiat currency, a currency that has value because it has been declared as valuable by fiat. That's what that means. Now, that lack of backing by gold and silver allows governments to just print unlimited currency. And that can lead eventually to a complete loss of trust in paper. Now, remember, inflation is one thing, but when you get to hyperinflation, nobody trusts it anymore. In our past, our currency was backed by gold and silver. A lot of you know this. Yeah, you know what? Here's an example. A silver certificate. This is currency, but it was backed by something right there at the top. You can see this certifies that there is on deposit in the Treasury of the United States of America $1 in silver payable to the bearer on demand. This piece of paper or linen wasn't what was valuable. What was valuable was what this represented, what backed this piece of linen. This was I like to use the analogy, a claim ticket for your coat when you go to a fancy restaurant. Okay, the valuable article, the thing that was worth something, isn't the piece of paper, the claim ticket that you have for your coat. It's the coat. You wouldn't want to collect a bunch of claim tickets and say, "Woohoo! Look how rich I am." No, that's not what the worth is. The worth is what's behind this currency. That's why I don't like to really call this money, even though we do informally. It's currency. All right. Now, I don't know if you know this, but in Germany, at the end of their bout with hyperinflation, when the German mark was worth 1/trillionth of its original value, 1/trillionth, Germany pegged its brand new mark to gold. All right. And they pegged it at the pre-war rate. So it's true that the gold standard actually helped Germany recover from hyperinflation. Now, I've tossed around, billions, right, and hundreds of billions, and we mentioned, trillions. We throw those terms around like crazy, but a lot of the time we don't really grasp the extent of what those numbers mean. This is a $100 bill. It's paper thin, right? This is $10,000. That right there, guys, is $1 million. And you could stick that in your backpack. That's amazing, isn't it? $1 million. That is $100 million. About the size of a standard a pallet. Can't quite pick that up with your bare hands. It would take a forklift. This is $1 billion. 10 of those pallets. And then this right here, this is where the order of magnitude, I think, really sets in. You see this, $1 trillion. Look on the far left-hand side. There's the guy standing there for perspective. And this is 2 pallets high. $1 trillion. That is the scope we're talking about. I think it helps me understand when we say, like Stephen Knight said, printing 2.2 trillion, imagine more than twice that stack right there of $100 bills. Could hyperinflation actually happen? Well, the common thought is that we have a very proactive Federal Reserve, a central bank that would never let the past mistakes of other countries happen here. We would never make those mistakes. I mean, come on. You're talking Venezuela, Argentina, Zimbabwe. Give me a break. Those are banana republics. We are America. We have the trust of the world. We have the reserve currency of the world. In order to buy oil, you have to buy it in dollars. Everybody wants our debt. What are you talking about, Yankee? It just can't happen. The Fed is also thought to be so monetarily sophisticated that they know what knobs to turn and what buttons to press. They can take care of us. Everybody just relax. Yankee, relax. Yes, we are America. I am so proud to be an American. There is no other country I would rather live in than the United States of America. And in large part, the world financially does revolve around us. The dollar is the most powerful currency in the world. I get that. I'm a huge patriot. However, I'm going to state it right now. For anyone to think that we are too big to fail, that nothing could ever unseat America as number one in the world economically, that is just plain, unadulterated hubris, pride. Now, I am proud of America. I'm proud to be an American. But to have that kind of thought is just grotesque to me. That's like those in the Roman Empire sitting back and just thinking, Look at us. This empire is so vast. We're so awesome. Nothing could ever cause this empire to fail. Well, there was a lot of things that caused the fall of the Roman Empire. I'm not going to talk about that today. But I am going to talk to you about this Atlantic article by Matthew O'Brien, and it's back 8 years ago in 2012. And, it's fun to look back 8 years and see what the, pre-medical crisis mindset looked like. I'll put the link in the description. Feel free to read the whole thing. But here it is in a nutshell. When faced with the question, could America suffer hyperinflation? Mr. O'Brien says no. Absolutely not. For three main reasons. One, we don't have any problems selling our debt. Two, we are not actually printing money. And three, the United States is a highly productive economy. Now, I'm going to respond to each one of those points by Matthew O'Brien. And at the very end, you are going to make the call of whether you believe hyperinflation is possible in America or not. Number one, we don't really have any problems selling our debt. Really? Well, from where I sit today in 2020, I take issue with that. Over the past few years, some countries like Russia and China have actually been reducing the amount of U.S. debt they have. China trimmed its holdings to the lowest amount held in the last 2 years. Now, they have roughly $1.1 trillion in U.S. debt. If you saw my last video, which I hope you did, frankly, that number just doesn't sound so big anymore, does it? With the debt, the numbers we've been hearing, 2.2 trillion, all that, it just doesn't sound like a lot that China has $1.1 trillion in U.S. debt. It is a lot of money, and, it's nothing to sneeze at, but they are no longer the number one foreign U.S. debt holder in the world. That dubious honor goes to Japan, who struggles with negative interest rates, so anything looks good to them, right? Now, much digital ink, if you will, has been spilt over the possibility of the U.S. defaulting on China, or China dumping its U.S. debt. It's called the nuclear option. It's something you may have heard about in the news. I mean, the administration right now is like, they came out and said, we're not going to do that. That would be unwise. Well, just stating the possibility, even if they think it's not likely, is really risky. Not only could China, but the whole world could look at that and go, whoa, you're thinking of defaulting? You're actually contemplating that? And that could have serious repercussions. The point is, we are in a death grip, if you will, right now with China. Okay? And the likelihood of China, dumping its treasuries seems unlikely, right? However, there's a few points that I want to say about China. Number one, China hates how we've weaponized the dollar over the past 15 years or so. China also is working really hard to open up other avenues for trade. It's the reason that they really put all the emphasis and money around the Belt and Road Initiative. It's all about breaking the reliance on America's debt-fueled consumption and the trade imbalance that we have. China has worked really, really hard at increasing this gold. All right. They are amongst many nations that are repatriating and growing their stockpiles in gold. Now, they're not going to come forth and tell us exactly how much they have, but we have a good estimate on what their holdings are, and it keeps growing. China has absolutely no qualms against abusing their populace. Their communist regime knows how to subjugate and control its people. And they're far more apt to allow them to suffer, if they did break that grip, if they decoupled from America. The suffering would be great, but you know what? I had a friend years back who was actually in Tiananmen Square when the crackdown occurred. He told me that he had to really contemplate whether or not he was going to do what his friends did and step up on top of the box that they had there in the square, take the microphone or the bullhorn or whatever it was, and start talking about the injustices of their country. Because he knew the moment he stepped up to take that mic, he would probably be whisked away and never seen again, like some of his friends were. And if it hurt them to decouple, they may be willing to do it. Finally, they don't actually need to dump U.S. treasuries. All China really has to do is simply hold shorter and shorter and shorter term notes, and then just not buy more when those notes mature. They don't have to actually sell anything right now. Not yet. And I believe that the cycle of our consumption with China's IOUs, that death grip, we buy, they take our IOUs. That, I think, could actually be broken easier as a result of this medical crisis we're in, and the severe recession or depression that we could be going through soon. So if we cannot or will not consume at the same rate that we've done in the past, where would that debt go? Where would that debt go? Well, the answer is actually really simple. That debt would go to the Federal Reserve. The Fed is already the fastest growing consumer of U.S. treasuries. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. In fact, I think it's going to get a lot worse. When a country starts to buy more and more of its own debt, the more like a banana republic it becomes, the more likely it's going to experience hyperinflation. So that's the, my answer, if you will, to that first statement by the author. The second argument that he makes is that we're not actually printing money. Not like war-torn Hungary, back in 1945 at least. Nearly half of Hungary's productive capacity had been wiped out. Its infrastructure had been obliterated, literally, by bombs. And the government at that time wanted to, rapidly rebuild its lost capacity, get their people back to work, but they couldn't afford to do it. So they did literally run printing presses nonstop. They hyperinflated their currency with actual paper money. Now, I don't think the author here is trying to be cute. Okay, we're not literally running printing presses like Hungary. These are just, bits on a computer screen. And all it takes is someone at the Fed to sit down at a keyboard and type a few zeros in, and it's done. Boom, there it is. No, what he says is quantitative easing or money printing, quote, involves the Fed buying longer term bonds from banks. It simply swaps one asset for another. In this case, cash for longer term bonds. Unlike Hungary, the Fed isn't directly paying the treasury bills. This is a hugely important distinction, end quote. Well, first, when it comes to quantitative easing or QE, I think it's a distinction without a difference. The Fed is still increasing the money supply. It's still monetizing the debt, regardless of the treasury maturity games it's playing with bonds. But second, we are paying the treasury's bills now. We're paying it in spades. Where did that money come from? Well, in normal times, that would mean, selling $2 trillion in treasury bonds and bills on the open market. But who has $2 trillion of extra income lying around? Okay. Who wants to use $2 trillion to buy treasury debt? Well, that's a good question. But I already told you the answer. The Fed, they are now buying all the debt that the Treasury is selling, all of it, and more. Because of this medical crisis, the Federal Reserve launched a series of actions that they said was to, quote, support the smooth functioning of markets. So they did a few things. They vastly expanded their repo operations, essentially providing unlimited amounts of cash to whatever bank needs it. They lifted bank regulations temporarily, and they started buying hundreds of billions of dollars of mortgage-backed securities, municipal bonds, even junk bonds. And who knows, soon they may be buying corporate stock. His argument about money printing is a moot point, in my opinion. The Fed is printing money, and it is all in on paying whatever the Treasury needs paid. So that's his second argument. And his last one right here, that he says the United States is a highly productive economy. I guess that depends on how you define a highly productive economy. What do we produce? Really, think about it. What does America produce? Don't get triggered now. But the answer is very little. This is my buck knife. I received this knife when I was a young man from my mom and dad for a birthday. I love this knife. It's filleted quite a few fish that I've caught over the years. It's a great knife. All right. It was made, and I mean completely made, in the U.S. back then. But amazingly, 85% of buck knives are still made in the U.S., depending on the knife. I think they continue to buck the trend, and they're working really hard to try to bring more and more production back to the United States. I applaud that. All right, that's fantastic. But that's the minority, folks. Okay, we really don't make much anymore. I remember my dad used to say, "I'm not going to buy that Chinese stuff." Well, now that's pretty much all we buy. So what we produce is primarily services, financial services especially, food and agriculture, and other products too. Military weapons, and other financial products. There really isn't a lot of manufactured items in America. Most of what we produce, at least from a manufacturing standpoint, really is just assembled here in America. We are professional consumers, folks. And that is a big reason why we have such a huge trade deficit. Also, when you talk about GDP, it's important that you also include debt. You got to factor that in. The best way to do that is to look at the U.S. debt to GDP chart. Check this out. Man, we've left 100% GDP behind. Our debt is going way up. You can see what was originally estimated for the debt to GDP, but now with this medical crisis, it's just going to go right through the roof. So, do I actually think hyperinflation is coming? Well, admittedly, hyperinflation is much less common than inflation, and that's a good thing. But the short answer is yes. Heck yes. Right now, our Federal Reserve and most central banks around the world like inflation. They really do. They have no problems with prices going up and up and up, and the value of our dollar going down, continually shrinking. They have totally drunk the Keynesian Kool-Aid. They think that having an iPhone cost much more now than it did back in 2010 would be a great idea. That's awesome. Let it cost more. Yeah. But that's yesterday's news, folks. The reason I think the Fed is going to lose control of their pretty little 2% average with inflation is due to the recent recklessness sparked by the medical crisis. They have thrown all caution to the wind. And the mindset of the White House, the Congress, the Fed, and even Americans of both parties has radically changed. Guys, we are embracing big government now. No one's concerned about, bailouts. No one cares one bit that we are entertaining socialism full bore completely. Nope, it's no biggie. It's a sea change. And here's the big risk. This is the thing that I predict is going to completely bring hyperinflation to life in America for real. I predict a new wave of central banksters are going to enter the scene, and they are going to preach that hyperinflation is absolutely nothing to be scared of. That's right. It's just fine. I'm talking about modern monetary theory, or MMT. It's a teaching that is just out of fantasy land. It teaches a whole new generation that we can spend all we want and not give a rip about national debt, deficits, trade imbalances, whatever. It just doesn't matter anymore. Print all the money you want and then some, just for fun. Money's not circulating around the economy fast enough? No problem. We got that solved. Is all the money the Fed printed stuck in some bank somewhere? Nah, don't worry about it. The bank's not lending. Spending not happening. Here's the answer, folks. MMT. Just screw the big banks, right? And their special relationship with the Fed. Forget about it. Same with the bond markets. No. Forget that. We'll give cash directly to any and all public or private institution, company, individual, anybody. We'll make it easy too. We'll do it digitally. We'll create a wallet right on your mobile phone. Bam! You'll have cash. You want more? Bam! Here's some more. No problem. You don't spend it fast enough? Well, that balance will evaporate unless you spend it by Friday. Yeah, it might cause hyperinflation, but what's the big deal? We'll keep it under control. All you have to do is tax it into submission. Yeah, that's right. You heard me. Taxes. That's the answer. Let me give you an analogy. Actually, I'll tell you the analogy that Stephanie Kelton uses. She's the chief economist for Bernie Sanders, and she's a leading MMT proponent. She explains it this way. She uses a bathtub metaphor. The spigot of the bathtub is the federal government. The water coming out of the spigot is money. The tub is the economy. And the drain is taxes. According to MMT, when the federal government needs more money, I should say currency, it simply turns on the water by contacting the Treasury, which then contacts the Fed, which then credits the federal government's account at the Fed for that amount. Okay, simple. The government then spends the money any way it wants in the economy. To continue the metaphor, that's the water filling up in the tub. Now, there is only so much space in the economy for that additional currency, just like there's only so much space in the tub for that additional water. With all the money pouring in, the risk of hyperinflation just goes through the roof. But to calm everyone's fears and to manage this, according to MMT proponents, the government taxes money out of the economy as it is necessary. That's the drain. You just pull the stopper, down goes the water, no more problem. That last point, the draining of the water, taxes, that's huge, folks. The idea is that the government isn't collecting taxes to fund programs anymore, but to manage inflation. But that is insanity. It only works as long as there is any confidence in this stuff. All right? When that goes, it's over. This is a confidence game, or a con game, if you will. When the confidence crumbles, no amount of jacking up the printing or filling the tub and pulling it out with with taxes is going to work. Hyperinflation will be the final stage of our economic collapse. That's the end game, guys. That is it. That's why I am stacking. Again, I really didn't show much, but these are my ice cream cones over here. Some pretty stuff. Love this stuff. I love that oriental border there. Man, there's some really beautiful silver items. Very nice. Love my poured silver. I love this. These are some of the more numismatic proof or uncirculated silver pieces that I'm collecting. I love channel rounds. I got to get some more here. Salivate metals. There's just another average stacker made this for me. I mean, really, these are fun items, right? This is collecting. Yeah, collector stacker, or maybe I'll flip a few of these things. Yeah, if the price goes up. Yeah, collecting, flipping, prepping, stacking. This is why I'm a prepper stacker. This is the end game, guys. I hope you appreciated this part 2 of my series on hyperinflation. If you did, like, subscribe, maybe share it, both of them, part 1 and part 2, with people that you know in the community. And as always, I hope your day is A-okay.